Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Mark Polon, and I live in Fairhope, Alabama. And I'm here today to talk to you about the distressed assets market. Thank you so much. All right. It was last night that I was having dinner with one of my favorite CCIMs, a gentleman named Scott McLean. And we were talking a little bit, and he said, what are you going to talk about tomorrow? And I said, well, part of what I'm going to talk about is, where is the distressed marketplace? And Scott said, well, I just have to look out my window. And, the fact of the matter is, as unfortunate as it is, that is absolutely true. What I will hopefully put together and weave together in the next 35 minutes or so is the various confluences of dynamics and technologies and issues in the marketplace that are creating the problems that we're seeing that Cotton referred to coming in about, where is that, floodgate opening up and where are all those properties like we saw in the RTC days? Well, the fact of the matter is, in the RTC days, we had a government that could seize properties. We do not any longer. And so by virtue of that, we are not going to see that happen again. You can forget about it. So the question is, without that, what next? And so hopefully I can show you some of that as we move through today. There we go. Part of what I'm here to do today as well is give you a little plug for a CCIM one-day workshop that takes place in Atlanta in 2 weeks. It's a full-day workshop, and it is about finding opportunities in the commercial real estate marketplace in the troubled asset world. It's very specific in terms of the things it deals with. It not only sets the foundation for what we're going through right now, but it talks about how you restructure debt, how you work with a lender, how you work with a receiver, how you deal with foreclosure laws in any given state that you might have to be with. And we do it in a very hands-on way so that when you leave this one-day workshop, you leave with a laundry list of ways to go about finding opportunity and profit in this marketplace. The key is differentiation, as everybody has said today, and I'll tell you one thing. Most of us who have been in the brokerage world for a long time are very proud of our abilities to get jobs done and to close deals. And I'll tell you right from the very get-go, this market is not looking for great brokers. This market is looking for knowledgeable professionals in the marketplace. And if you don't bring that to the table when you meet your new folks in this marketplace, you're not going to get very far, because it's all about resolving problems in the distressed marketplace right now. I'm president of a little company in Fairhope, Alabama. We're called RIISnet. We are trying to be the next NASDAQ, only we want to be that for commercial real estate. So we are based on a real-time supply and demand delivery system. We have patented technology that matches buyers and sellers and puts them together in virtual deal rooms so they can knock out deals and move quickly through the process. We only deal in $5 million and above product. Most of our deals are in the $20 to $50 million range. Most of our registered users are professional real estate investment companies, although we do have any number of brokers involved in this transaction process who are the representatives of those users. So if you're playing that marketplace at all, if you represent people from anywhere in the country looking for domestic product, you should go to the site, RIISnet.com, just take a look at it, and if it looks like something you might be interested in, just send us a quick email and tell us you'd like to know more. What you see on the screen are all of the places I went to gain data for what we're going to talk about. I am deeply involved in macroeconomics, as we are a national site as opposed to a local one. And so most of the information here is regional at best, predominantly national figures. I will tell you, though, there is absolutely no substitute for substantial, strong local knowledge, because when it finally does happen, that's where it happens. But you have to have the ability to compare what's going on in your marketplace to what's going on in the market as a whole. We have two markets working simultaneously right now in the country, in the distressed side. We have the property market and we have the capital market. And it's the way those two are working together is what is currently creating the issues in dealing with moving product from existing ownership or existing control to a new form of ownership. So here are the questions that I want to deal with today. What is a troubled asset market? What is a troubled asset? Where are these properties? What property types are they? What are their price ranges? Where do we see most of this activity taking place? Who's playing in the market? How big is it? And how long is it going to last? Okay? So this is what we all want to know, right? Because that's what I want to know. If I'm thinking about where I'm going to be putting my time in the next year, 2, 3 years, I want to know what the marketplace around me is going to look like. And I apologize for you all getting, slapped back and forth, bad news, good news, bad news. Mine is bad news. I'm right along with our good governor. We are not looking pretty right now. However, there's a great old quote from a songstress by the name of Mimi Farina. And she and her husband Richard did a song once called "Been Down So Long It Looks Like Up to Me." And what you're going to see is inklings of that in the material that I'm going to show you. So what's a troubled asset? A troubled asset is a property with a financial problem. And that's what Scott meant when he said all I have to do is look out my window. Because frankly, in this marketplace today, that's all we have. We have rising cap rates, so we have diminished value. We have bad conceptions of the quality of the income streams in the existing income-producing real estate. And we have restrictive lending practices. Put those things together, and you end up with the market that we're in, which is one where virtually every product could be called troubled. Now, as I go through today, I'm going to make some distinctions. When I show you some slides on distressed real estate, we're talking about foreclosed, non-performing notes, short sales, and auctions specifically. But the troubled asset marketplace is much broader than that. So, properties with a financial problem, we've looked at that. And those problems can come from any number of places. Tenancy first. The income stream for most all income-producing properties has diminished since 2007. And it's diminished in one of two ways. It's diminished actually. Landlords have been giving rent relief. Tenants have been disappearing. But it's also diminished conceptually because properties with the same NOI in 2007 that they have today in 2011 have substantially lower values than they had in 2007 because the perception of that income stream has diminished. And so that income stream is worth less today in 2011, even though nothing has changed in that property at all. It could be building problems, right? You could be in a, in a Class C office building, and it's just not there anymore. It can no longer handle the kinds of business practices that have to take place in an office building. And so that's a clear example of a redevelopment project. Well, great, redevelopment in this market. Where's the financing going to come from that? So, in the small end of the marketplace, we have a lot of troubles with building problems that create a troubled asset. Location problems, are you no longer in a market where anything is growing? Are you in a diminishing market? Most all of us read the news, right, about there's cap rate compression in markets around the country, and that is true. Those very same markets are also the leaders in distressed assets. So what's happening there? We're finding prime properties in marketplaces that are well-balanced for growth, well-balanced for diversity. And so by virtue of that, in the major metros, we're seeing some very low cap rate sales, but they are not representative of the marketplace as it exists today. Lender problems. There is a sort of a strata of lenders in the marketplace, right? We go from our community banks all the way up to our national investment banks. And what they are holding in their portfolios tends to differ. So your smaller community banks are heavily laden with construction and land loans that aren't performing well, or REO of the same nature. You take a step up to the regionals, and you start to see slightly bigger projects, but still heavily laden in the land and project development area. And by the way, somebody in my marketplace, which is Lower Alabama, if somebody calls me up and says, Mark, can you help me with my land? I typically tell them no, because this is also a market where you have to pick and choose what you want to fight for. And right now, they sit at the bottom of the poll in terms of coming out of the doldrums. Coming out of the doldrums is about income-producing real estate. It could be the lenders, in addition to having this, there are about 8,000 lenders in the country that are insured by the FDIC. About 5,000 of those lenders have in the president's drawer a cease and desist letter that is telling them that they have to raise their capital ratios, or the FDIC, when it gets money again, may actually come and close them down. The reason that we are seeing less bank failures than we were last year is because the FDIC has run out of money. So they would love to close the banks, but they don't have the money to do it any longer. And so banks that were being closed are now being left open, even though the problems are the same. There's also an international movement called Basel III going on right now. Basel III is an international banking movement that is putting pressure on all countries to do exactly the same, raise their capital ratios. So all banks are under a lot of pressure right now not to sell below market, because then they also have to face something called mark-to-market, which many of us dealt with in the early 90s, which diminishes their value and makes them look less healthy to the companies that insure them. So where are the properties? Let's get into where these things are. Well, the properties are, as you might guess, along the eastern seaboard, along the western seaboard, and then in all the major metros that we all know. I mean, and why is that? That's because that's where all the properties are. It really is as simple as that, because this marketplace is very little of this marketplace is about a specific asset. It's about percentages of assets that are having difficulties in the marketplace in which they find themselves. This is a chart. This is really good. If y'all don't know Dividend Capital, go to dividendcapital.com. They do a report called the Market Monitor. Glenn Mueller runs this for them. And it charts, going back 5 years, the position of various property types and various communities, 50 or so, and where they are on that curve that we all recognize that goes from recession to recovery to high times and then back down into recession. And one of the things to note here is that we're looking at the bottom of the trough. That's what number 1 is. Number 1 is the bottom of the trough. Number 8, that's where building begins again. So that's the point in the real estate cycle where it becomes profitable to build. It has been 1 year. I have this from third quarter of 2009, and the only difference in the chart is that all of these, as opposed to being at 16 and 1, and by the way, 1 and 1 are the same, they were all over here on the right-hand side. So in a year and 1 month, according to Glenn, some properties have edged over, really, a little bit into some kind of a we're coming back. The red arrows represent locations in the South. There are, Dividend Capital does not track Alabama. What's the right word for this? As most national tracking devices do not. And so we're left with